Thanks, everybody, for being here today. I'd like to welcome everyone to a very special day, a special program. Judge Williams has something to say. Judge?
Thank you, Paul, for giving me an opportunity to make an announcement, but it's a melancholy announcement, and many of you have heard. If you haven't, it's with much regret that the 12th Judicial Circuit announces that the Honorable Gilbert A. Smith Sr. Passed away yesterday. Many of you in this room are fortunate enough to have had the experience with the senior Judge Smith, either perhaps practicing with him, practicing before him, or serving with him as a judge. We released a statement yesterday, and I'll just read from that. To those of us who knew him, served with him, practiced with him, or came before him when he served as a circuit court judge, we all understand what an outstanding person, lawyer, and jurist he was. He possessed an uncommon sense of humor, wit, intelligence, and a practical sensibility about judging that all of us who serve as judges would be fortunate enough to possess. He leaves a legacy of public service that is unmatched. Judge Smith, along with Judge Hensley and Judge Silvertooth, ironically, were all born in the same year and are all three World War II veterans. They truly personified what we now call the greatest generation. We referred to all three as the Rushmore judges, and the last of the three has left us. What they gave us, for the majority of you who may not have met them, is the foundation for our reputation of statewide judicial excellence. Charles Clapsettle and METV are here recording this event, but I will advise you that the Rushmore Judges was actually a documentary, and that documentary is going to be played on METV this week, along with other interviews that we were fortunate enough to have memorialized on film. So I encourage you to watch METV this week and this weekend to catch up on what we know about Judge Smith and that he was a remarkable person. Let me just finally let you know that there is a service for him. The service is going to be where he retired, up in Due West, South Carolina. The service is Saturday, October 28th at 1 p.m. at the Due West Presbyterian Church, 112 Main Street, Due West, South Carolina. I know that perhaps for most of us we can't attend, but you can probably send cards or flowers to that address. That's Due West Presbyterian Church, 112 Main Street, Due West, South Carolina. It doesn't have a zip code, but I don't think you need one for Due West. We will probably have some sort of event here locally for Judge Smith, the senior Judge Smith, and we'll let you know that as we get closer to perhaps a realistic date. But also the family wants you to know that donations may be made on his behalf to Legal Aid of Minnesota or the Due West Lions Club. So thank you, Paul, for allowing me to make that announcement.
Thank you, Judge Williams. Judge Lee Hayworth is going to come up and talk a little bit about two things. The Judge Gilbert Smith Sr. Circuit Award for Exceptional Legal Services, as well as lawyers helping veterans. Thank you, Judge Hayworth.
So it's a little ironic that this announcement was set in advance of knowing that Gilbert Smith Sr. was going to pass away. The history of this award goes back a couple of months, probably beyond that. When I was Chief Judge, I had this on my to-do list, and I didn't get to it. Fortunately, Chief Judge Williams moved it to the top of his. This is a recognition of the service, exceptional service that lawyers do from as long as I can remember being a member of the bar, and I'm sure it predates my action as a lawyer, judges would call on members of the bar to perform extraordinary work. And we never really truly recognized your service. And we only selected people to do this that had the highest ethical standards and who were professionally competent in the area that we were asking for assistance. And so Chief Judge Williams and I started talking about how could we find a way to honor those lawyers who have made that effort for us. And so we have come up with this program, and the Chief Judge is going to award it. It's going to be coordinated with your Law Week in May, and it recognizes members of the bar who, at the request of a judge, were asked to perform exceptional service on behalf of vulnerable litigants facing life-altering legal issues. The award is to be symbolic of their commitment to the lawyer's oath, which enshrines our profession's pledge not to just earn a living, but to serve the helpless and the oppressed. And the award is a means by which the 12th Judicial Circuit can show its appreciation for the selfless and dedicated service of these attorneys. And the nominees will be proposed by the other circuit judges and magistrates, and then a decision will be made by the Chief Judge to announce that in May. But for those of you who've been called upon to do that service, we are really deeply appreciative. We see a need, we reach out to you, and you say yes, and we want to be able to recognize that. The second thing I want to announce today is a special program. I don't know if many of you know Judge Walker, Steve Walker. He's a family division judge in Sarasota. But he's working with Jim Dearman, a criminal defense attorney and a Marine veteran, to recruit lawyers who are willing to act as pro bono counsel for unrepresented veterans facing child custody and parenting issues in the family division. And in Sarasota, they've recruited up to 13 attorneys, not all of whom are specialists in family law. They have a variety of other practices to provide unbundled limited services for veteran clients in Sarasota. And these Judge Walker and Judge Dearman are reaching out to members of the Manatee Bar with requests that members here participate and become available to help these Manatee clients. The use of unbundled services is contemplated because, as you know, it does not require lawyers to commit to the entire case. Attorneys will be provided information that will allow them to plug clients into VA services, such as housing, job referral, mental health, substance abuse counseling, medications, and even disability counseling and evaluations. So, if any of you guys, you don't have to be a veteran, but if you'd like to assist veterans, you can call Jim Dearman at his office. You can get him on Google or look it up in the bar. He's offered to coordinate this and to help bring you folks into this program. He's out of state this week, but he will be back next. So that's a program that's going to be useful for cases where we see a veteran, they're going to have to meet certain income requirements, and then they'll get a lawyer, hopefully from Manatee County Bar, who can help mentor and guide him and perhaps participate, at least on a limited basis, in his or her case. And although I was called up for 2 announcements, let me make a third one since I'm up here. We are starting training for guardian ad litem and family divisions 2.0. You know, we've called on lawyers to help represent the children in these cases, and we've had a very good response. But now we have to retrain and ask for new lawyers to come forward to serve that function. They're specially appointed, specially trained, and the training is coming up probably in April. Judge Donna Berlin, who's the administrative judge for the family division, will be making the announcements and outreach. I just want to give you all a heads up. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Judge Hayworth. Alex St. Paul has an announcement regarding upcoming continuing legal education.
Hi, on Friday, November 3rd, the Probate and Guardianship Division is having a seminar. It's at 12 o'clock, it's $25, it's going to be a lot of fun, it's going to be interactive, we won't bore you to death, and you get 2 CLE ethics credits, which are hard to come by. So anyway, send in your RSVPs and your checks to Grace Ann. Thanks. Any questions?
I
No? No questions? Okay.
Since we're on the topic of CLEs, I'd like to announce that we have a bench bar conference being scheduled. It is scheduled for May 4th of 2018. Try to get that on your calendar. It's going to be a fantastic joint venture between the Manatee and Sarasota County Bar Associations. It'll be at the Sarasota Hyatt, an all-day affair. A lot of credits. I think we're trying to get a technology credit, which is a new requirement for continuing legal education. So you'll hear more about it, but you may want to get it on your calendar now, May 4 of 2018. Sierra Butler's going to come up and talk a little bit about the Diversity Committee. There you are.
Good afternoon, everyone. By the actions taken by the boards of the Manatee County Bar Association and the Young Lawyers Division, the Diversity and Inclusion Committee is now a joint committee. Yay! If you've got interest, we'd love to have you join our committee. Our next meeting is November 21st at noon. If you want to be added to the committee's mailing list, just let Grace Ann know. We want to talk to you about two things. One is that on November 9th and 10th, the Florida Bar Standing Committee on Diversity and Inclusion is presenting its Path to Inclusion at the Hilton Orlando Lake Buena Vista Hotel. There are great programs, including breakout sessions on implicit bias, mental health law issues, gender equality, and fostering understanding. If you're interested, please touch base with Bryony Swift or Lori Dorman. On Thursday, November 16th, there is a free program at the New College of Florida Sainer Pavilion presented by the Boxer Diversity Initiative. It's Freedom Riders, their relevancy today. Would you get on the bus? The program starts at 6:30 and is, again, free and open to the public. If you're interested and you'd like to get a reserved seat and an opportunity to meet the speakers before the presentation, you can go to their website at www.boxerdiversityinitiative.org. Finally, just a little heads up, we're working on two programs in 2018, including a CLE and a trivia networking event. So details to come. Thanks again, and if you're interested, please let Grace Ann know. Thanks so much.
Okay. Bryony Swift was going to update us on what the Young Lawyers Division is doing. She'll do that next month. Another save the date, a holiday party that we have coming up. Our annual holiday party is on Friday, December 1. Again, that's sponsored by Fidelity Bank, LexisNexis, and Lutz, Bobo, and Telfair. So I hope everyone gets that on their calendar for Friday, December 1, our holiday party in lieu of our December meeting. We have something called the Manatee County Bar Association 100% Club. If your firm has 100% membership in the Manatee County Bar Association, then you're in the club. Send Grace Ann details of that and confirm that you have 100% participation. We appreciate, of course, when firms participate entirely in our association. You'll read a little bit more about the 100% Club in the inter alia. Now to begin today's program, I would like to again introduce to you Chief Judge Charles Williams.
I'm back again. The theme for this lunch program is Veterans and Veterans Court, and everything's sort of blended together. Even the announcement of the death of senior Judge Gilbert Smith, Sr., who was a veteran and served in World War II. The 12th Judicial Circuit's Veterans Treatment Court program was developed to help veterans who are in the criminal justice system address various issues associated with veterans and the special needs these veterans have as they return to society. Our veteran treatment courts provide judicial supervision while giving veterans an opportunity to receive treatment for many life issues that are specific to the veteran population. Our goals are rather simple: reduce criminal recidivism, facilitate participation in mental health and wellness and sobriety programs, increase compliance with treatment and other court-ordered conditions, improve access to VA benefits and services, improve veterans' quality of life and their stability, and of course, to maintain public safety. Manatee Veterans Court started in August of 2015 using existing resources with great support from the community. They currently have a caseload of about 19, and Mr. James may be able to update to you or correct that if that's not correct. Sarasota also has a Veterans Court program, started July of 2016 after receiving some state funding and also with great community support, and they currently have a caseload of approximately 23. Your support, as always, is greatly appreciated. Whether it is advocating to the general public on the benefits of this program and others like it, or volunteering to assist these veterans by providing pro bono services for the many legal needs they have not had addressed. While all of us may not have had the opportunity to serve our country in the same way as the veterans in these rooms and the veterans who participate in these court programs, volunteering your skills as a lawyer to help them now is an opportunity to do your part. And in comparison to their sacrifice, it is a very small price to pay. So I urge you all to support this program and others like it, advise the public about the good work we're all trying to do here, and to help these veterans complete their journey back to mainstream society. Thank you.
As the president-elect of the County Bar Association, my job is to find programs. And if you guys serve as president, you'll come to find that Gilbert Smith Jr. really does a lot of work. In fact, he's the one who comes up with all the programs. But this program was one I thought of, believe it or not. I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was talking about this program, and I said, I don't know anything about it, and I'm a lawyer. So I decided I better find out about it because I felt pretty stupid. So I did. And we want to try to support the veterans as best we can. And you know, at Christmas, when you all come to the Christmas party, we have you bring a gift or cash or something to support a charity. Last year we did Turning Points, and so I'm hoping that this year we could do something to support the veterans and bring checks to contribute to this program because it's really worthwhile. Dennis Plews, who is one of our guys, he was practicing law with us for over 40 years and retired last year, was a veteran. I didn't even know it. And I heard he was going to be the speaker today, and I said, I didn't even know he was a veteran. That's pathetic. So anyway, but I did know Dennis. We served on the board of Fall together many years ago, and he was the secretary of Fall. Pretty secretary. So anyway, he's here to speak to us today. He served in the Army. He's a veteran. He was a lawyer here for over 40 years, and he's a wonderful guy. And welcome, Dennis.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks. Thank you, Alex. For a while, it was necessary to keep our veteran status undercover back in the 70s, and we sort of like got used to that. Now, the topic today is veterans courts, and Judge Smith Jr. asked me to give a little background into how they came to be in this state. And being a trial lawyer for 42 years, I'll try to keep this opening statement real brief. The real genesis of Veterans Court in this state, insofar as the 12th Circuit is concerned, started when 5 lawyers, all veterans of the Vietnam era and 4 of which are combat veterans, came together and formed a veterans organization called Florida Veterans for Common Sense. One of them is a Marine, an artillery officer, combat experience named Jim Dearman. He's still on duty. You just heard about him. The other 4 were myself, an Army artilleryman, Michael T. Burns, an Air Force pilot who got shot down over the north and spent 56 months in the Hanoi Hilton, Jeffrey Morris, a chopper medic up on the DMZ, shot down 4 times, and Gene Jones, who was an Air Force intelligence officer who kept providing us field soldiers with information derived from their taps on the Russians. The 5 of us are the core of Florida Veterans for Common Sense. One of the projects we took on came about when Gene was up visiting with Veterans for Peace up in the Gainesville area and heard about a judge up in New York who had on his own started a veterans treatment court because of what he saw happening in his court. This was the Honorable Robert Russell in Buffalo, New York. In about 2008, he started his own Veterans Court. Gene caught wind of that and came down and said, you can't believe this, but there's a judge up in New York that's starting to treat veterans the way they should be treated. What can we do to get that same kind of thing started here in Florida? And with that incentive, one of the first things we did is, we're lawyers. Who do we go talk to? We talk to the judge. Well, we don't talk to any judge, we talk to the chief judge, Judge Hayworth at the time, and he was very encouraging and supportive. And all the judges of the 12th Judicial Circuit, as I understand it, were very supportive of our efforts to establish a Veterans Court. Now, one at about the same time, one was going on up in the 6th Circuit. Judge Hayworth, and through his leadership, got us funding for the first 2 years and for the first 3 or 4 years. So our own judicially ordered Veterans Treatment Court here. And Gene, Jim, Jeffrey, Mike, and I took on the task of getting legislation adopted throughout the state to see to it that this particular need was met statewide. Now, the way we did that was pretty straightforward. Lawyers do that. We write bills. So Jeffrey and Mike and Gene took on the task of drafting up preliminary version of the legislation that ultimately was adopted. And we began, after getting advice from the bench, started politicking. I was fortunate enough to have been appointed to the directorship, or a director's position of the State Democratic Veterans Caucus, and I used that position to bring on board the State Democratic Party. Nonetheless, it still took us 2 years to get a bill passed, and without the help of our own Mike Bennett, who is a Navy veteran who served offshore in North Vietnam, helping catch down Air Force pilots, Navy pilots, who managed to escape the North and get out over the Gulf of Tonkin. He led the charge in the Florida Senate, and now we have 2 bills which provide for essentially a treatment court on the same pattern of the mental health court and the drug court for veterans. And of course, we tie into every veterans support organization from the VA on down, and I'm extremely glad to say that our community has given us overwhelming support. Any organization we ask to come help, helps. So even before it was official, we had housing, mental health, just a treatment, mental health treatment for veterans, as well as legal assistance to them, and a diversionary program for them. Now, fortunately, now we have 2 statutes that permit chief judges of the several circuits throughout the state, 20 as I last knew. I've been retired for a while, I may be out of date. The last, I just checked a few months ago, and we had, of the 20, 17 circuits that adopted veterans courts, or treatment courts for their felony and misdemeanor courts throughout the state. So today, as I understand it, if you get arrested, one of the first questions you're asked is, are you a veteran? And the diversionary program starts there, and that's where it should start. Because as combat veterans know, and I'm thinking some of these Marines over here may well be in that category, hoorah, it's not easy being a soldier or a Marine or a sailor or an airman in a combat situation, no matter what your job is. People get the burden of war laid on them even if they're in the rear. We know medics in the rear who've got bad PTSD as a result of their service, and they were never even shot at, but they saw the consequences of it. So this particular program is not only needed, it's appropriate and necessary for our nation. Without veterans, there wouldn't be a United States of America. Florida Veterans for Common Sense bears that name in honor of Thomas Paine, who was one of the founding fathers of this nation, gave us our name, and was himself a combat veteran. So from the very beginning until the present day, we win our freedom and keep it through the service of our citizens in the military arms of our country. And we appreciate the support we receive from the civilian community in times of need, and particularly for veterans who, as a result of their service, have problems that are more appropriately dealt with through treatment than incarceration. That's how we got here. Now, we're going to have some more reports on the current status, but one of the failings of the legislature has been to fully fund the Veterans Court system. So I'm going to pass the cudgel on to y'all, and you pick it up and keep informing our state legislators that we need to support the Veterans Court and fully fund it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Our next speaker is Alfred James, who is the administrator of the program. Mr. James.
Good afternoon. Our drug court began actually in Manatee County. We began as a track our Veterans Court began as a track in our drug court. At that time, we had begun to serve veterans prior to that, but we were treating them under the drug court rubric, the drug court method. Veterans Court is modeled after drug court, treatment court, but the difference is that it's specific to veterans. So some of the things that we do in drug court, when you come into the program, you got to get a sponsor because we're looking at the 12-step sponsor master. Veterans Court, instead of a sponsor, you get a mentor because you're going to get somebody who's gone through the process, who understands what you've gone through. And if you have those situations where you get a little down or dump, you get somebody who can talk to you about what's going on. Our Veterans Court is designed to be completed in 1 to 2 years, and the model has stretched out to 2 years instead of 1 year because of the things that we're now facing in our society. Not only the substances that are being used, but also when you're dealing with the veterans, they're coming back with a lot of different maladies that normally people in our society don't have. The post-traumatic stress, MST, military sexual trauma, and other things that come along with it. And what we do that's a lot different is that we connect with the VA and our local veterans organizations. And sometimes our veterans may not be here in Manatee County. They may be over in Pinellas County at the VA getting the treatment that they need there because they can get specialized treatment there. With us, we got therapists who have master's degrees and such, but they may not have that specialized treatment dealing with post-traumatic stress or MST that some of the veterans come back with. And sometimes when we see the veterans with those conditions, we may not understand it fully because we call it acting out. But what they're actually doing is they're going through symptoms of their conditions, and so we need specialized people to deal with those. And the Veterans Court works very closely with the VA. Patrick Diggs is our Justice Services Coordinator from Bay Pines, and he's here probably every week. And we call him, we talk with him, and he's able to give us updates on people who had the VA treatment. And one of the things I do like that the VA has done, because they do have residential treatment that's available, but because so many veterans needed residential treatment, it often ran out. But they now are able to contract with local residential facilities for veterans. So if the VA is full, they can contract to a local facility and get that veteran treatment, and they don't just cut it off at a particular time as they used to do. They really work more to get those veterans what they need for a long-term process. And so for veterans, that window stretches out a little longer because there are some specific things that we deal with in Veterans Court. Otherwise, it's very similar to our drug court, but not quite. Because what we've done is we've also created groups within our Veterans Treatment Court that are specific to the veterans. So the veterans have the time to be in the groups by themselves. They're not in with other drug court members. So the things that are going on with them, they're able to talk about and converse about, and they understand one another. They still have the option to attend some of the drug court groups. Say if it's a substance abuse issue, they need to deal with that, they can go to those. But we've created veterans-only groups, and some of those groups are actually run by veterans themselves who come in from the outside to come in and to help take care of those groups for us. Right now, we have 21 veterans in our program. Going back to 2016, we've had 40, but we've had more than that because before we started really tracking the veterans, we were already treating veterans. And right now, we have 21. We've had 40, and out of that number, we've had 19 graduates, and of those, when I say, let me rephrase that, we've had 19 discharges. 11 of those have been successful graduates. We've had 5 that have been unsuccessful, and then in that number we've had some deaths and also some transfers where people went to other veterans courts. But I think we're doing a pretty good job with the vets right now. I would say this, though. I think the veterans are a little tougher to treat, to be honest, than some of the people in drug court because, as I say, they come with some things that we haven't seen with a lot of our normal drug court clients. But the veterans, once you get them connected with mentors and with the system, though, they generally do very well, and we just have to keep on track with them. Any questions anybody has concerning our veterans court? Oh, okay.
Thank you. I'm wondering what type of services the community and the county provides our veterans. I know there is a coordinator within the county.
Lee Washington, he's a veteran service coordinator. And we actually work with Lee. Lee is a part of, when we have our Veterans Treatment Court, it's the first Thursday of every month at 11 o'clock here in Manatee. Lee's a part of our group. He's able to update us as to whether veterans are eligible for services, what services they're eligible for, whether they're eligible to get any type of disability or any of those types of things. But the thing about us, some Veterans Treatment Court will only work with veterans who are eligible for services. We'll work with those who aren't even eligible for services because we've had some guys with bad conduct discharges and other types of discharges, and we just work with them because within the county there's still some things they can tap into, and we try to help them to get involved with those. And some of the things we do work with, we work with housing. There's some housing around here that's specific for veterans. Jewish Family Services, we work with them, and they provide vouchers so that veterans who don't have the ability to pay for a place, they'll take care of that for a specific amount of time so that they'll have somewhere to live. We work with agencies for employment. So whatever it is that they have need of, we find that agency, and we work closely, I say, with Patrick and Lee. And if we don't know it, they can direct us where. Goodwill is another big partner because Goodwill deals with the jobs, but they also deal with other entities. They bring a lot of the groups together, so we get together and we talk about what's going on. And there are a lot of interesting programs that are going on. One of them that kind of interested me a lot was the Vet to Chef program. And what that does is they'll work with the chef, who's a veteran, and he'll train them on how to become a cook chef. And by, I think, the 5th session of their training, they will actually be eligible for employment, and he will help them get a job at that time. So there are a lot of creative things that are going on in the community involving the veterans, and I would say this, a lot of them are spearheaded by the veterans themselves. And I think that's really important because if you want those type of services, you need someone who understands what a person's gone through, and they do a very good job. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I know each Veterans Treatment Court is different. Can you please explain what cases are eligible for the court here?
I'll say, when we began, we kind of almost took everybody who came through, but we kind of scaled back a little bit. We primarily take nonviolent felonies, but in our Veterans Court, we also are taking DUIs, which are misdemeanors. Normally, those would not come in, but we do take those. And I'm going to speak slowly when I say this. We do take some cases that may be domestic, but what we have to do is we have to look at the circumstances surrounding, because sometimes if a person has post-traumatic stress, it may be that acting out, and it may not be clearly just someone with an issue of being aggressive. It may be some other issues behind it. So we'll look at those, and if we determine that as a component, we'll bring those cases in. So I really would like to say we take each case by case and review it. And we're actually looking to try to expand the boundaries a little, because as a group, we're going to meet together a little more and look at some of the cases more and more, just to make sure we're getting as many people served as we can. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you to all our speakers. Judge Hayworth talked about the Lawyers Helping Veterans program, and as a family practitioner, I want to tell everybody a story of somebody, two people actually, veterans who had served in Iraq for a period of a long time and saw some really horrible things over there, came back to Manatee County to find that shortly thereafter divorce petitions had been filed or custody cases had been initiated. And these were good people. They had both returned to work, were high function, but suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, as it would not be surprising to anybody. That hadn't demonstrated itself in the form of domestic violence, substance or drug abuse, anything like that. Yet the other spouse or parent on the other side of the case took the position that that parent shouldn't have any custody or very limited custody of their children. And that's the sort of thing that a soldier can come back to as one of probably a myriad of problems that they have to face in returning after honorable service overseas. And thankfully, that right was done in those cases, and they were resolved favorably or fairly, frankly, to both parents. But those are the sort of challenges that people face, and I hope people take up Judge Hayworth on being involved in that program. Thanks to all of the speakers that were here today, Judge Hayworth, Judge Williams, and Mr. Plews. It's been a long time since we ran into each other. Dennis basically, I think, taught me more in my first year of practicing family law than anybody else when I first started practicing. So again, we really appreciate everyone speaking here today, and we hope you have a good rest of the day.